Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of What's Happening. I'm George Spins, and I'm here with my co-host, Gail Burke. And we're continuing our series on the candidates for Ward 3 City Council. And our guest this evening is Kris Silverstein. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, George and Gail.
So if we get right down to the issues, why do you want to be a city councilor?
Well, because I love Beverly. I've been a resident of Beverly and have called it home for the past 23 years. I care deeply about the city, and I love what my family and I have had the privilege of enjoying here. We have great schools, great people. The arts and culture scene is just phenomenal, and I would love for our city to continue to be the best it can be, and I'd like to be part of that.
What do you think it has to do different to be the best it can possibly be?
Well, there's a lot that we can keep doing that's the same, but, you know, there's a lot that we can do that's different as far as paying attention to the safety in the city around, you know, traffic and pedestrian and bicycle safety. You know, having been on the school committee for 10 years, I learned a lot about, you know, students getting safely to and from school, and it's really, you know, a huge issue with so many parents who drive their children to school versus kids who could have safe walking routes to school. And so safety is a priority. I think that, you know, we have work to do around affordable housing. I would love to retire in Beverly. I would love for my children to own homes in Beverly. I don't know if they'll want to stay in Beverly, but I do hope that for them. But, you know, it would be wonderful if they could do that and work and live in Beverly and be able to afford that. What else?
Oh, a couple of issues you already brought up. One is that safety issue. We could go Thursday, had a doctor's appointment out in the boondocks, and drove past the school on Brimble Avenue at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. Could not get by the intersection. Cars were backed up trying to make the right turn into the school parking lot. Cars were backed up trying to make the left turn into the school parking lot, and you go into the other lane to go. And I think this is one of the issues that I think something needs to be done on the school committee. We'll take it up with your successor, I guess, on that.
Well, I'm there till December, so.
But again, it'd be something to consider on the budget issue of can we get back to having a reasonable bus schedule where you don't have to be 5 miles out of the city before the bus will pick you up and people are paying?
The mayor has been working with the school committee and the PTOs around the city to figure out how can we get more students on buses, how can we have fewer cars coming in and out of the parking lots of all the schools. And so they're making some headway with that, but it's going to take time. And one of the issues with busing is right now we don't have enough bus drivers. So it would be a matter of, you know, could we hire more bus drivers if we need more buses?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, a prime example would be if you look at the situation with the parking garage that they built down by the train station. At $5 a day, there was a lot of space available in that place. They cut it to $2 a day. You can't get a spot. So I think this gets to be an economic issue that is both the city and a school committee kind of got to get together on.
Right.
Get the prices
and in
down.
general, what's good for the earth, right? What's good for, you know, the carbon emissions and all of that with so many cars on the road. And the other thing I am always concerned about are distracted drivers and accidents happening. And I happen to live in Ward 3 and live right in the most troublesome intersection, I believe, in the city up by Henry's. And, you know, it would be great if we could do some more work there to make that safer for everybody as well.
Yeah.
As a member of the school committee, you're going to be dealing with very different problems than when you become, if you become, a city councilor.
Correct.
And one of the things that I am concerned about, not only in Beverly, because I now live in Peabody, but the marijuana situation. And I understand Beverly is going to open 4 recreational pot shops. And I am concerned about that because young people, as we know, have access, will have access to it, and as a parent as well.
Sure.
I'm sure you're concerned. And I think when the law was passed in 2016, the states, the cities didn't make any provisions for how they were going to deal with it, how were they going to regulate it. And I wonder if you become a member of the City Council, how you're going to deal with that.
So I share your concern. For the past probably 6 years, I've been working on the Be Healthy Beverly committee, which is comprised of people from the YMCA, people from the hospital, people from the schools, the police force, emergency management people, and then parents of children who have had issues with substance abuse, and students from the high school. And that group, we were focused on the opioid issue for many years. We still are. We're very concerned about that. And we've brought education and prevention measures to the city and to parents and students. But we just procured a drug-free communities grant, and that drug-free communities grant allows us now to work on alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana use among young people. And so, we're working hard to make sure that, liquor stores aren't selling to underage people, that there's prevention and education available for students and families. And, it's a great group of people that sort of kind of falls under the radar in our city. And it started with the Y when they were talking about just healthy living in general. The mission is to help people live the healthiest lifestyle we can. And so that group, the grant allows us to work on these issues at least for the next 5 years. And
What does the grant actually do?
it gives us money so that we can bring in speakers to talk about vaping and marijuana use to kids and to parents as well. It allows us to do sticker campaigns at liquor stores and at once we get marijuana
What's
retail.
a sticker campaign?
So it's if you go to buy a six-pack of beer,
Yeah.
there'll be a sticker on it that says it's unlawful to give this alcohol beverage to somebody who's
To
under
share
22.
it with somebody who's underage.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So it's a collaboration with retailers to help the young people not have access to those sorts of substances.
Well, I think that's where I have the problem, because you don't want them to have access to it, and yet you're going to open up pot shops. So isn't that kind of a conundrum?
It is a conundrum.
Instead of putting a ban on it, like some cities have done.
Right, but the people of Beverly voted for it, so we have to abide by the voters. And
Well, they voted for it, but did they? They didn't vote to have 4 shops open, did they?
Well, my brief understanding of that is that your minimum is a percentage of how many liquor stores you have in the city, and so that allowed Beverly to have 4. If we had, and we have a lot of liquor stores in the city, so some cities will get more retail shops and some will get less. Yeah.
Well, I just listened to the mayor of Peabody the other day. He gave a presentation at Brooksby, and I must say I was impressed. Not with just that, but with other things. But I read in the paper that Peabody, I guess, has a ban on pot shops, and I thought, well, that's a good thing.
Did Peabody as a city vote against it?
I think it was the people in the city didn't vote to allow it. As far as the city council, I'm not clear on that, but I think they didn't pass it either. They passed the ban.
Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
have to
So
learn
I'm
more
just,
about Peabody,
I'm just
yeah.
getting into Peabody politics just
Yeah.
to figure out what's going on in the city where I now live.
There you go.
But the other thing that I was impressed by was we started talking about the Essex Tech.
Oh,
And as a member of the school committee, I know that you have knowledge about the kids from Beverly going to the technical high school.
right,
And in Peabody, they have a lot of kids that are on the wait list.
right.
So apparently they're making provisions with other cities to develop some kind of carpentry, trade.
Trade programs.
Yeah, because they don't have the room in their high school, and I know Beverly doesn't have it anymore.
Right.
And I wonder if you had if the Beverly School Committee had considered anything like that.
We have not. It's not been a subject of our discussion at all. And we do know that we have not every student who applies gets in. It's pretty competitive now.
It is.
You know, it's a fabulous program. You know, and kids are clamoring to get in, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But
it's too bad they
it's
didn't
not
have room
enough
for everybody.
Yeah, it's not enough for everybody. I think other communities are grappling with the same issue.
Yeah, it's going to be a universal problem that people are recognizing that everybody can't go to college and take out a lot of loans and pay them off.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
So-
And not everybody should go to college.
Right.
The other issue you were talking about on your introduction was affordable housing. We've had Andrew DeFenza on the show a couple of times talking about affordable housing and housing that people can really afford to live in. And there is a major disparity. The example I used is if my wife and I are both on Social Security. Between us, we get around $2,600 a month, of which the federal government peels off about $500 for Medicare and all the other good stuff. And yet, affordable housing for the city of Beverly is defined as something like $1,800 a month rent. And in that kind of a situation, somebody in our conditions would be trying to live on $400 a month and pay utilities and food and everything else. And it really comes down to an issue of how do we adopt the zoning so that you don't have to have an R10 zone or turn it into the other option is a building 40 stories tall that's only about 2 apartments wide because that's all the piece of property you can afford. So what do you think about what can be done in the city?
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot I have to learn about that. I did work with Andrew DeFranza on the anchor project that's supposed to be coming in where Sawyer Road and Tozier Road meet in that triangle. And, you know, that is proposed to bring housing for people, first priority for people who are homeless.
Yeah.
And so that's helpful for us as a city as far as students who we transport out from other towns to come to school in Beverly. It would save us some money because we don't have to transport them. They'll be right here in Beverly. And this is where they live. This is where their home is. And I did learn somewhat about affordable housing through that project. But even then there was controversy about how much of that building should be set aside for affordable housing. And I agree with you, you know, affordable is relative, right? And when I think about, you know, my husband and myself and when we are retired, what will we do? When I think about my children and after they're done with college, what will they do? You know, they certainly right now could not afford to live in an apartment in Beverly, where when I left college, that's what I did. I moved to Beverly and I had an apartment with one other person, and we were able to afford it right on the ocean. It was beautiful, you know, but you can't do that today.
No.
Yeah.
The other question I had, one of the other questions I had, we hear a lot about 16-year-olds should be allowed to vote. I wonder what your feelings are on that because it's very controversial.
Sure.
And when I consider the 16-year-olds and their lack of knowledge of government and how things work, I'm quite surprised that it even comes up. What are your feelings on it?
So the school committee had a presentation by some students, I think it was called Vote 16, and they had some pretty compelling arguments for 16-year-old voters. So the things that sort of swayed me in the direction of being in favor of that were things like developing a voting habit early, learning about, you know, politics and being an educated voter early. My experience with my own children is their first experience voting at age 18 was their freshman year in college. And they had to navigate absentee ballots, and they had to navigate, you know, exactly how to do that from afar. And to me, if they had had the habit of voting, and of course they came, I mean, I'm in politics, so they've come to the polls with me since they were, up to my knee. However, having that experience, I think, is helpful. I also think about the average voter in Beverly and, probably the average citizen. How many citizens are able to vote? They're over 18 or they're over 21, and, they're over 18, and they don't vote. So, I don't think, to me, a 16-year-old who wants to vote is probably going to be motivated to learn about the issues and learn about the candidates versus somebody who, maybe just never votes and never takes the time to learn about any of it. Or I've run into people in my time as an elected official who will say to me, Kris, who are you voting for? And I might tell them or I might not, and they'll vote just because of the way I'm voting. So these are people who, are educated and have access to voting and can get there and all that. And
it's going to be an interesting primary, considering Ward 3 is the only one that's got a primary.
Correct, yeah.
How many people are running?
There are 5 that have pulled papers, yep.
Okay.
And so as we
According to
know
the
now.
last list, nobody that 5 has dropped out yet.
Okay.
This is going to be a tough race for you, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
You haven't
yeah.
had any competition all these years.
No, I haven't. But I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and do the work, and I'm really, working now at meeting voters and asking them what their issues are specific to Ward 3, but also, around the city, and, what are the things that they think I should be advocating for.
What are you
them.
hearing?
So far, safety, traffic, that's why that kind of came up first for me. Ward 3 is 1A runs right through Ward 3, and most of us who live in Ward 3 are on and off 1A all week long, and it's a challenge.
1A is a challenge. Every street in Beverly is getting to be a challenge, and Ward 3 is kind of unique in that it runs almost from downtown all the way out to 128.
Right.
That's a diverse group.
It really is, yeah.
I think this whole area, Salem, Beverly, Peabody, the traffic is just increasing
way more than ever, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And to go from one to the other you have to time it perfectly.
You do.
And if you get caught and you're a little bit late, forget it.
Yeah.
You sit there in traffic.
Or heaven help you if you have to go to Marblehead.
Oh, you better get in and out fast, or you'll never
The only way to
get
get to Marblehead, you got to be born there.
Yeah. But another issue, too, is, there's a group of people who have been revitalizing the Ward 3 Civic Association, which is something that a former city councilor had up and running for a few years, and it just kind of laid dormant for a while. So these are some very smart women in Ward 3 and men, and they care deeply about neighborhoods. They care deeply about getting to know each other and having kids play safely on playgrounds. And so they've already done a couple of events. They had a Ward 3 Civic Association picnic at Balch Park, and then we did a cleanup at the Balch House. So they're sort of about community and connecting people together, and I think they have a wonderful mission that they are anxious to share with us. Yeah.
Well, I seem to remember that I read about the presentation of the 16-year-olds, getting back to that, giving their views in a public presentation. And I thought, they have some good points. And these kids that did it, I'm sure were very motivated. But for the average 16-year-old, I just don't see it. And I don't think that they get much in government education in the schools. I think that, it just hasn't happened. And I don't think most of them have a clue as to how the local government runs, never mind the city, the state, and the federal. So
I think we're getting better at it, especially at Beverly High. And then, statewide, there's a mandate to increase civics education in the curriculum as well. So
I think one of the issues that keeps coming up is that, you'd like everybody to vote, but you'd like them to vote intelligently.
well,
exactly, yeah.
I've heard it enough times that, hey, if you don't know what you're talking about or you don't know what's going on, stay home.
Yeah.
I mean, just...
I used to encourage everyone to vote. I don't do that anymore either. Because when I hear some of the things that they talk about, for instance, one issue is the Electoral College. They don't have a clue. And there's, we got to get rid of the Electoral College. Well, I mean, the media plays a big part in pushing that kind of a thing. But they don't know the history. They don't know the history of the country.
Do you think that's unique to 16-year-olds, or is
Oh,
that...
no.
That was my point. Yeah,
But I mean,
it's not unique to a 16-year-old.
Right.
It's a universal problem.
But I mean, even at 18 or 21. But you hope by the age of 21, 18 or 21, they have a little bit more knowledge. And at 18, they're off to college.
Right.
And I'm sorry, but most kids are clueless when they go to college. They are. And it's a big, whole new world.
Yeah.
And coping with college and all of that.
Sure.
And like you say, the absentee ballots.
I like to encourage people to vote, but to become an educated voter.
Yeah.
So learn about the issues, learn
Yeah.
about the candidates,
Yeah.
and try and decide which candidate fits your, aligns most with your values and your thinking, and which candidate you think is going to work the hardest for you.
Yeah. Well, you start to talk about some of these issues that the city has, and the traffic problem is universal. But part of the cause of the traffic problem is the continual building of multifamily housing all along Rantoul Street. And yet, very little has been done to make Rantoul Street a little more accessible. In fact, one of the problems that they've got right now is most people try to go down Cabot Street because they don't want to fight the lights on Rantoul Street. And at the same time, you look at the situation along Rantoul Street, and the apartments are set up such that you get one parking space per apartment.
Yeah.
Okay. If one of the inhabitants takes the car to work and the other one needs to get some groceries, there's no grocery store within walking distance. So it's getting to be almost like a two-class society in Beverly, where you've got the people who live close to a train station, and that's another issue I'd like to bring up to. Do we really want to have multifamily housing or apartments within a mile of every one of the train stations? But at the same time, you've got another group of people who live out in the suburbs of the city, whatever you want to call them. And maybe this Ward 3 Civic Association will drag them together, but I see a split coming in the city between those that live in the apartments and take the train to work and come back again, and those that work someplace else.
Yeah.
And so I guess the issue that I'd like to see something done about is back to my favorite thing about affordable housing, in that the people that can afford those condos or apartments have to work someplace else to earn enough money to do it. The people that make it a vibrant community in the service industry, downtown, Cabot Street, Rantoul Street, that area, they can't afford to live here.
Outside the city, yeah.
So I see a split coming, and it bothers me.
Well, and there's no real public transportation in Beverly either.
No.
So I wish I had known that this would come up this way, because I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a survey that the city is doing right now, and one of the questions was, what are the things you'd like to see in your city, as far as retail or grocery stores, or, and where would you like them to be? It's probably on the master plan link on the city website right now, or somewhere around there. I'm not exactly sure, but I just completed it yesterday, and it asked some really good questions about transportation, about housing, about access to the arts and cultural things. It was really it's all part of the master planning that the city administrators are working on now.
Yeah.
Well, how would they deal with grocery stores? Because we have, I mean, that's an issue for people that, as you say, with affordable housing, with one car, you have a few small stores,
right?
But the big stores, like the Stop and Shop, and they're kind of not within walking distance of a lot of people,
right?
Yeah.
And carrying stuff home,
yeah.
especially where you don't have plastic bags anymore.
I know.
had to throw that one in.
Well, the other thing is true is I'm getting stronger as I get older, because when I was a kid, I couldn't carry $10 worth of groceries. Now, no sweat.
Well, that's because it's only $1 worth.
Yeah, but yeah, that's one of the issues of what kind of amenities are going to. It's not a blended city. It's. I see it getting to be one of. Well, we got all these condos down on Rantoul Street because we're buying into the state's program of housing near the train stations. Okay, that's fine. But we've got 5 train stations. And how far is this going to go? How far would you let it go as a counselor?
You'd have to look at what's proposed, right, for a building. But I think we are saturated right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's an appetite in general for more,
Well, you just look at Rantoul Street, and you're right. That's been saturated.
It's wall to wall.
And buildings,
Yeah. And
condos, apartments everywhere.
Yeah, and you're right, too. You know, the thinking behind a lot of those was transport-oriented, right?
Yeah.
So that people could live in the city and go to Boston to work and then come back at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's tough.
All good things for me to think about.
What's happening to the McDonald's building, the old McDonald's on the harbor?
Somebody is planning to put a restaurant there from my latest information that I read in the Salem News. Again.
Yeah.
See
And
if
also,
hope it doesn't fall through. But
the
I
Briscoe.
know.
Yeah.
The Briscoe now is going to be sold,
Yes.
as I understand it.
yeah.
So I volunteered on the advisory committee for the Briscoe reuse, and there we learned that, way back when we were building the middle school, we learned that reusing Briscoe for a middle school was not going to be financially feasible because of all the work it would need to bring it up to a state of,
You got to meet code.
Yeah, to meet code
Yeah.
and to meet the needs of kids for, educational purposes as well. So that was already off the table as a school. And then the advisory committee looked at, could it be a police station? Could it be City Hall? Could it, and by the same token, the amount of money it would cost to renovate it would be far more than building the brand new police station that's going to be, located in front of the Cumming Center.
Okay.
So-
Well, we only have about 40 seconds left, I would say. So, would you like to wrap up, Kris, and just give a final sentence
Sure.
about your candidacy?
So George had given me some guidance about what to talk about today, and he said at the end, give a pitch. So my pitch is, why people should vote for me. I am dependable and reliable and consistent, and I always do my homework, and I have a 10-year record of doing good homework and research before our votes on the school committee. This summer, I plan to spend my time connecting with the voters of Ward 3 and listening and learning about what they feel is important. And I believe that I have skills that can help Beverly to achieve incredible things. So I remain ready to roll up my sleeves and do the hard work. And I am ready to bring my calm and thoughtful and collaborative approach to City Hall. So
Very good.
I'm Kris Silverstein. I'm running for Ward 3 City Council, and I humbly ask for Ward 3 voters' vote on September 24th in the preliminary election.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And good luck.
Thanks.
Thank you all for watching, and we hope you'll be with us next time. We plan to continue with a few more people that are running for office, and we hope you'll be watching and get some good information. So good night.